Welcome back, guys. Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family also. Can you please tell me from where you're watching? Thanks. The thing in apartment 3B back in 2014 when I was 19, I moved into this old apartment in a town called Cedar Falls. It was a small college town, trees everywhere, quiet streets, and this weird mix of new shops and crumbling old buildings that looked like they hadn't been touched since the 70s. My cousin Leah and I decided to room together that year to save money. We weren't super close growing up, but we got along well enough and figured it would be better than living with strangers. The place we found was on the 3rd floor of this red brick building just off Maple Street, apartment 3B. It had one of those awkward L-shaped layouts, creaky floors, and this long hallway that led to 2 small bedrooms and a tiny bathroom. The kitchen was old, with faded yellow tiles and cabinets that never shut properly. But the rent was cheap and it had a little balcony with a view of the river, so we went for it. It seemed fine at first, just old, maybe a little too quiet. But not long after we moved in, things started to feel weird. The first thing I noticed was the hallway. No matter what time of day it was, it always felt darker than the rest of the apartment. Like the light never really reached all the way down. I kept thinking I saw someone standing at the end of it. Just a flicker, like when your eyes play tricks on you. But every time I looked straight at it, nothing. One night Leah was out and I stayed in to work on some sketches for my design class. I had music on low and was sitting at the kitchen table with a bunch of pencils and paper spread out. It was late, maybe 11 p.m., and the apartment was dead silent except for the occasional creak of the building settling. Then, all of a sudden, I got this weird sensation. You know when someone's standing behind you, and even if you don't see them, your body just knows? It was like that. I didn't hear anything. No footsteps, no breathing, just this cold pressure behind me like someone was watching me work. My neck stiffened, and I couldn't bring myself to turn around. I kept drawing, pretending everything was normal, but my hand started to shake. Finally, I glanced over my shoulder, and of course no one was there. But that feeling didn't go away. It clung to me until Leah came home an hour later. The second she walked through the door, it vanished like smoke. A few weeks later, Leah and I were both swamped with school projects. We agreed to take turns, using the living room to spread out our work. One night after I'd finished, I went to bed while Leah stayed up to finish hers. I was lying on my side reading, with my back to the door. The bedroom light was on, and then, this part still freaks me out. I saw a shadow pass across my book. Not like from a tree or the ceiling fan. I mean a solid shadow like someone was standing over me. I froze. I didn't even breathe. I figured it had to be Leah, so I rolled over, expecting her to be there. No one. I sat up, looked around the room. Empty. Then it happened again. Same shadow, same spot. I tried moving the book, adjusting the blanket, and shifting my head. The shadow didn't move. It wasn't me causing it. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just pulled the blanket over my head like a little kid and stayed like that until I fell asleep. Halloween rolled around and we threw this small get-together. Just a few friends. Nothing wild. At some point, people started swapping spooky stories. I didn't plan to mention anything, but then someone joked that our apartment felt haunted. Leah spoke up first. She said she saw someone walk down the hallway one night while working on her project. She thought it was me and got up to say something, but I was already in bed, fast asleep. She tried to shrug it off and keep working, but then she felt it. That feeling like someone was standing behind her, breathing down her neck. She turned around, but no one was there. I just stared at her. I hadn't told her about the shadow in my room. But now it all felt connected. We sat there in silence, the whole room suddenly way too quiet. Then other people started speaking up. One girl, Maddie, said she always felt weird on our balcony, like she wasn't alone. Another guy, Eli, said he'd crashed on our couch once and woke up in the middle of the night unable to move. He said he was floating, actually floating, and then spinning so fast it made him dizzy. Leah's friend Jamie had the exact same dream when she slept over. I thought it was all a weird coincidence until a few days later when it happened again. I was sitting at the dining table talking with my friend Alex. We were just chatting about dumb stuff when I saw it. That same flicker in the hallway. The dark shape. I stopped mid-sentence, staring past her. Before I could say anything, she stiffened. Her face went pale. "I saw it," she whispered. I blinked. "Saw what?" "That black thing in your hallway." I never told her about it, never described it. But she saw it too. That's when I knew it wasn't just in our heads. Winter break came, and everyone left town. Leah went home to visit family. I stayed back a few extra days to finish some things. The first night alone, I asked Maddie to come hang out. We made popcorn, watched a movie. Around midnight, I went to brush my teeth. I left the bathroom door open so we could keep talking. And then everything went silent, like someone had pressed mute on the world, not just quiet, dead quiet. Then, out of nowhere, a voice whispered my name. It was right in my ear, clear, slow, and sharp, like it knew me. I bolted out of the bathroom and asked Maddie if she said anything. She looked at me like I was nuts. We left that night and stayed at her place. After that, I contacted a few paranormal investigation groups I found online. They were super interested and said they'd love to check the place out. I brought it up with Leah when she got back, but she wanted nothing to do with it. Even though she'd experienced weird stuff too, she didn't want strangers poking around and making it worse. To this day, I still wish I'd let them come. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to this old church on the edge of town and asked for holy water. The lady at the front didn't even flinch, just handed it over like this sort of thing happened all the time. That night, I walked through the apartment with a small bottle in one hand and my phone flashlight in the other. I whispered as I went, even though my voice was shaking. "This is our place. You don't belong here. You're scaring us. You need to leave." I didn't know what I was doing. I just hoped it would help. And honestly, after that, things got better. No more shadows, no more whispering, no more awful cold pressure in the hallway. It was like whatever it was had packed up and left. But sometimes when I'm alone late at night, I still think about that shadow, about the voice, about dreams. And I wonder, did it really leave? Or is it still out there, waiting for someone else to move into apartment 3B? Back in 2013, I was pumped to start my first year at Northbridge Community College. I had everything lined up: books, a part-time job, and thanks to my Uncle Mark, who didn't have kids of his own, I even had my own place. He offered to pay the rent for a year so I could focus on school without the stress. Honestly, I felt like I hit the jackpot. My mom and I spent most of the summer looking for the right apartment. We drove all over the outskirts of Millersfield, this quiet little town just outside of Boston. After a dozen viewings, we finally landed on this place called Pine Willow Apartments. It was kind of tucked away behind a stretch of woods, and the complex had this peaceful, lived-in feel. Trees everywhere, neatly trimmed bushes. The buildings looked recently painted, and there were cameras by the entrances. Everything about it seemed safe and calm. The property manager, Miss Cheryl, showed us around. She was one of those overly nice types who smiles a little too hard. While giving us the tour, she mentioned that they'd just started remodeling the top floor of building C and that I'd be the first person to stay in one of the updated units. I was thrilled. The place was clean, had new carpet, and even smelled fresh like lemon cleaner and drywall. I picked out decorations with a cozy, girly vibe, soft blankets, fairy lights, pastel throw pillows. But the thing I was weirdly proud of was this little collection of plastic butterflies I stuck on the wall outside my bedroom. I arranged them in a spiral that made it look like they were flying around the door frame. There were so many. It almost looked like a swarm. The first few days went by fine. I was juggling school and my job at a nearby bookstore. My schedule was tight, and I usually got home around 10 at night exhausted. One night after class, I came in, kicked off my shoes, and dropped my bag by the door. As I walked toward my room to get ready for bed, I noticed one of the butterflies had fallen off the wall. It was lying right in the middle of the doorway to my room like it had been peeled off and placed there. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured the adhesive had just given out. But when I picked it up, the sticky side was still tacky. Weird. I pressed it back on the wall and went to bed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept feeling like someone was watching me. Do you ever get that prickly feeling? Like eyes are on you even though you're alone? That was exactly it. I tossed and turned for hours. The hallway light was still on, casting this soft glow under my bedroom door, and I kept staring at it, half expecting to see a shadow pass by. Eventually, I fell asleep around 3 a.m., telling myself I was just being paranoid. The next night, I came home to another butterfly on the floor, same spot, right outside my bedroom door. That's when I started to feel off. The apartment didn't feel friendly anymore. It felt like someone else was there, watching, waiting. I told myself maybe it was a draft. Maybe they were just cheap decorations, but night after night it kept happening. Always the same spot, always just one butterfly. The feeling of being watched never went away. It got worse. I stopped sleeping through the night. I started keeping the hallway light on, and even left my door cracked open just in case. I know that sounds dumb, but I didn't want to be fully closed off anymore. Then came the noises. It started with faint tapping, like fingernails on glass. At first I thought it was my neighbor. Thin walls, right? But then I realized it was coming from inside my room, specifically my closet. The door would rattle at night, just a little at first, then more violently, like something inside was trying to get out. I stopped opening it. I shoved a chair in front of it. I even tried to sleep in the living room, but I'm tall and the love seat was way too small. So I stayed in bed, covers pulled to my chin, every night listening to the sound of that damn door shaking. It didn't happen every night, but it was enough to break me down. I was exhausted, scared, and lonely. I started inviting friends to sleep over, making up excuses just so I wouldn't be alone. And here's the weird part. Whenever someone else was there, everything stopped. No butterflies on the floor, no rattling closet, no creepy feelings. It was like whatever it was didn't want witnesses. By the 6th month, I was unraveling. My grades were slipping. I barely ate. I dreaded going home. I begged my mom to let me move back in. She agreed, though she didn't understand why. I just said I wasn't doing well, mentally. That last night in the apartment was the worst. My cousin, Eli, came to help me pack. He's the kind of guy who doesn't believe in ghosts or anything remotely paranormal. Big, logical dude. Always calm. We planned to pack everything, sleep there one last night, then leave in the morning. It was the middle of January and a snowstorm had rolled in, making driving risky. We were both tired after packing all day, so we laid down to rest. I didn't say anything, didn't want to sound crazy, but I felt it immediately. The presence. That same awful, heavy feeling like something was watching us from the shadows. Eli was quiet for a long time, just staring at the ceiling. Then he turned to me and said, "Do you feel that?" My heart dropped. He felt it too. He wanted to sleep in the car. That's how scared he was. In the middle of a snowstorm. I begged him to stay inside, so we dragged blankets into the living room and crashed on the floor, far away from the bedroom in that rattling closet. I barely slept. I kept my eyes on the hallway all night. Once I thought I saw a dark shape move near the door, but it was gone in a blink. After we left the next day, I thought the nightmare was over. It wasn't. Back home, I still felt off. Like something had followed me. I was out of it all the time, zoning out, barely able to think. Days slipped by without me noticing. My mom said I'd sit at the kitchen table for hours, just staring. I didn't remember doing that. Things got worse. One night, I had this full-on episode. My cousin Eli was there. He tried to put this little rosary on me, something he got from his church. But the second he did, I blacked out. He told me later that I pushed him, threw him really, across the room like he was nothing. Eli's 6'2", and strong. That should have been impossible. He said I laughed. Not like myself, but in a low, eerie voice. I don't remember any of it. That's when he took me to see a woman from his church. Her name was Beth. Small lady, kind eyes. She didn't ask questions. Just led me into this quiet chapel and sat me down. She pulled out a tiny glass vial, holy water from a trip to Rome blessed by the Pope himself. She dipped her fingers in it and touched my forehead. As soon as she started whispering her prayer, I passed out cold. When I woke up, I felt like I could breathe again, like a weight had been lifted off me. Beth looked stunned. She said she saw something leave me, like a shadow peeling away. After that, everything changed. The fog lifted. I could sleep. I could think. I could feel normal again. But I've never forgotten that apartment. Sometimes I dream about butterflies. I see them falling one by one, and I wake up with that old feeling, like something's watching me. And every now and then, just when I'm about to fall asleep, I hear it again. Faint rattle from my closet door. Let me tell you about the creepiest place I've ever lived. It still makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. This was back in 2012, right after I finished high school. My cousin Jamie and I decided to move out together and get our own place. We found this cheap little 2-story rental on Pine Ridge Lane, in a quiet suburb just outside of Dunwood, a small town in upstate New York. It wasn't fancy, but it was close to a grocery store, the bus stop, and not too far from Jamie's job at the auto shop. And most importantly, it fit our broken, just out of high school budget. At first glance, the house looked all right. But once you spent more than a few minutes inside, you started noticing little things that didn't sit right. The front steps were cracked like someone had dropped something heavy on them. The backyard fence leaned like it was trying to escape. And inside, the upstairs hallway had weird splotches on the wall that looked like someone had started painting and just quit. One of the bedroom doors had a dent in it, like it had been kicked in a long time ago and never fixed. But we were excited to move out and didn't want to nitpick. We were told the house had been recently renovated, though honestly, it felt more like someone did a rushed job over a weekend and called it a day. The landlord was a guy named Mr. Beckley who lived out of state. He didn't seem to care much as long as rent showed up on time. Now I swear to you, from the very first night, something felt wrong in that house. It wasn't anything huge. More like this weird sense of unease, like you were always being watched. The living room windows were set at odd angles. And the hallway upstairs had a cold draft that never went away, even in summer. And then there was the staircase. It creaked like most old staircases, sure, but whenever I stood at the top and looked down, I'd get this creepy, almost overwhelming feeling that someone was about to dash up the stairs, like I had to turn away fast or I'd actually see something running up at me. I didn't tell anyone that at first, but Jamie swore later he felt the same thing. The first big scare happened on a Friday night. My aunt, Jamie's mom, was visiting for the weekend. It was just the two of us sitting on the couch watching TV. Nothing weird, just a cooking show and some leftover pizza. Around 9 p.m., we had the lights dimmed. Only the kitchen light and a little lamp were on. Suddenly the room went cold. Not like a breeze, like someone opened a freezer door right next to us. The air felt thin. I don't even know how to describe it. It was like trying to breathe on top of a mountain, and both of us froze. I could see her eyes go wide at the exact same moment I felt it. Something was in the room with us. And then we saw it. A shadow on the wall behind the TV and a little to the left. It was shaped like a person, but blurry and wrong. It was about the size of a kid maybe, but there were no details. No arms, no face. Just this fuzzy dark shape. It moved. Not walked, glided like it was floating up the wall at an angle, almost like it was climbing invisible stairs, and then it disappeared. We were out of that house in less than a minute. Just ran. Didn't stop until we were halfway down the street. We sat in the car until Jamie and my uncle came back home hours later. After that, things kept getting weirder. A couple weeks later, I went to the movies with some friends to see this horror flick called Dead Frequencies. It was about spirits using radio signals to communicate with the living. Kinda cheesy, but the idea stuck in my brain. That same night, I went to bed like normal, totally forgetting about the movie. But around 1 a.m., I shot awake because my clock radio, this old thing I barely used, suddenly turned on full blast. It was just static. Loud, sharp, buzzing static that made my ears ring. The buttons wouldn't work. I tried everything. Slapping it, unplugging it, but it wouldn't shut off, and then as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Silence. I looked down and the power cord. It wasn't plugged in. It wasn't even near the wall. It was under my bed, curled up like a snake. I hadn't touched it. No one had. Not long after that, we had a few friends over for drinks, just hanging out in the living room, laughing, music, playing low on someone's phone. Out of nowhere, Jamie's old stereo system turned on by itself. The volume cranked all the way up, and the song, it wasn't a song we recognized. It was this weird, glitchy, garbled music that didn't even sound real. Everyone jumped. One girl started crying. Jamie yanked the power cord from the wall, and it still kept going for another few seconds before finally cutting off. We tried to laugh it off, but the energy in the room, completely different after that. And then, we heard it. A girl screaming. Loud. From upstairs. It wasn't muffled. It was clear, like someone was standing in the hallway above us shrieking. My friend Darren tried to say it was just a neighbor or a prank. But all of us heard it, and we all knew. It was inside the house. There was another night, a few weeks later, when I woke up around 2 a.m. feeling thirsty. Jamie was away visiting friends, and my aunt had gone back home. I was alone. I got up, walked through the laundry room to the kitchen sink. While filling a glass, I heard something from the garage. Tap, tap. Thanks. It took me a second to realize someone was playing ping pong. We had a table out there, but no one was home. I heard the bounce of the ball, the paddles hitting it, the echo of footsteps shifting around. I stood frozen, every hair on my body standing straight up. I pressed my ear to the door. The sounds were clear, real, rhythmic. I backed away slowly, heart pounding in my chest, and went straight back to bed. I didn't sleep much. The next morning I sat down at the table for breakfast. Before I could say anything, my aunt looked at me and asked, "So, how late were you playing table tennis last night?" I nearly dropped my spoon. "I wasn't," I told her. Her face went pale. "I woke up at 3 and heard someone out there playing." We both sat there in silence, realizing we'd heard the exact same thing, but the creepiest thing, the thing that still gives me chills to this day. One night, I was at a buddy's house playing video games when my phone buzzed. It was Jamie. "Dude," he said, "how drunk are you?" "What?" "I can hear you at the door messing with the keys." I wasn't even home. There was a long pause. Then he mumbled, "Okay," and hung up. 5 minutes later, he called me again. This time he was freaking out. He said he'd heard something huge running along the side of the house like a big animal, but with heavy footsteps. It ran from the front porch to the backyard, fast. Then came the pounding on the back door. Furious, non-stop banging. When he opened it, no one was there. That was the last straw. A few days later, we broke our lease and got out. Didn't care about the deposit. Didn't even look back. To this day, we still talk about that house on Pine Ridge Lane. We have no idea what we lived with, but we know we weren't alone.